5.3, and we're going to be using proportions and problem solving, which means now we're going to have word problems and we're going to have to solve them using proportions. Here's the first one. It says, on a Chamber of Commerce map of Abita Springs, 5 miles corresponds to 2 inches. How many miles corresponds to 7 inches? So now the word corresponds, so corresponds to, is the same as saying is to, so this is going to be your fraction bar. So we have 5 miles is to, or corresponds to, 2 inches. So you start by writing out what they give you. So they give you this. So this is your given proportion. And then it says how many miles, so you're looking for how many miles corresponds to 7 inches. So how many miles? So this is your unknown. So because it's unknown, you may use a variable. I'm going to call it n, so I'm going to call it unknown n. So maybe your equal sign in between your proportions, or I'm sorry, in between your ratios. So I said this wrong. This is your given ratio. And there's your equal sign. And then it says how many miles. We do not know this, so this is where your n is going to go. So n miles corresponds to, there's that corresponds to again. That means your fraction bar, so there's my fraction bar. And it says 7 inches. Now this entire thing represents your proportion. Now let's make sure our units match up. Miles up top, miles up top. Inches on the bottom, inches on the bottom. Good, so the first step is to write out your proportion. And then obviously step 2 is to solve your proportion. So remember, you solve using cross multiplication, so you're going to cross multiply. And you're allowed to do this if there is an equal sign in between. So 5 times 7, which is 35, equals n times 2, which is 2n. Now, how do you solve for n? Remember, divide by the number in front of n, which is 2. Divide by 2. What you do over here on the right side, you must also do on the left side. These will cancel out, and it'll leave you with n equals 35 over 2, which is the same as saying 17.5. Now remember, n is the number of miles, so go ahead and put your units on there. So this is 17.5 miles. So step 1, use the information they give you to write your proportion. Step 2, solve the proportion and find what they are looking for. Here's another example. It says the standard dose of an antibiotic is 3 cc's for every 50 pounds of body weight. At this rate, find the standard dose for a 130-pound woman. So, we have 3 cc's for every 50 pounds of weight. So 3 cc's for every 50 pounds. This is the ratio that they are giving you. We have our equal sign. Now we got to find the standard dose for a 130-pound woman. You're looking for the dose, so you do not know how many cc's, so you're going to put your n up here. So this is n cc's. And we know the woman is 130 pounds. Make sure your units match. So cc's up top, pounds on the bottom. And of course we can cross multiply. So now you have 3 times 130, which you should have 390, equals 50 times n, which is just 50n. Now you get to solve for n by dividing by 50. Divide by 50. So 390 divide by 50. And we're going to go ahead and do our long division. So 50 goes into 397 times. That's 350. 40, 0. We put our decimal in here. Drop down another 0. We get 400. So now we have 7.8. So N is equal to 7.8 cc's. All right, let's go in our books to page 378. And let's start by looking at number 9. It says a human factors expert recommends that So number 9, it says a human factors expert recommends that there will be at least 9 square feet of floor space in a college classroom for every student in the class. And then 9 says find the minimum floor space that 30 students require. So the information gave us 9 square feet of floor in every classroom for every student. So 9 square feet for every student. So for one student, they need 9 square feet. And then the problem, it says find the minimum floor space. So we don't know this, so we call it N. That 30 students require. So 30 students on the bottom. So this is your proportion. So now we're going to solve it. Cross multiply. So 9 times 30 is 270 equals n times 1, which is n. So since there is not a number in front of n, or actually it's just 1, so since there's just 1 in front of n, we do not have to divide by 1. So n is just going to equal 270 square feet. Okay, let's look at number 18. It says a Cubs baseball player gets 3 hits every 8 times at bat. So 3 hits every 8 times at bat. At this rate, if he got 12 hits, find how many times he batted. So he has 12 hits. And he wants to know how many times did he bat. So we're going to call that N. That's what we're looking for. So again, we cross multiply. So 3 times N is 3N equals 8 times 12, which is 96. And then we're going to divide both sides by 3. Divide by 3. And N equals 32. So he's been at bat 32 times. Okay, so in 5.3, you will have a word problem. They will give you the rate or the ratio, and then you must set up the proportion. So step 1 is to set up your proportion. And then step 2 is to solve for your unknown, who is N, using cross multiplication. Okay, so this will conclude our video for 5.3. Please email me if you have any questions.